Welcome to the first of hopefully many Constellia Development Blogs, a series of videos where I go over features and content that I have in the works so that you all know kind of what the future holds and so I can build up hype over new features and releases. The first feature I want to go over is one that I've been teasing and talking about over the last week or so, and one that I think you're all pretty excited about, that I feel like most of you already know what this video is about, especially if you read the title. That is player factions. And when I go into the faction creation menu here, the first thing you're going to see is this price tag. Factions are going to cost 100,000 electrites to craft. And this is because, number one, I want factions to be a mid to late game thing. I don't want you to be able to just get a faction in a day or playing. I want you to have to actually work for it. The second reason is because I feel like electrites are a little bit easier to acquire. Obviously, you have Terranite, Ascent, WF anomalies, and Slag, all of which you can very, very easily get your hands on to get some pretty good loot and pretty good value out of all that. Which is why I made factions a little bit more expensive. But I'm just going to go ahead and make my little alliance here, the Alliance faction. And I'll take a minute, but as you can see, it'll actually show up, and now we have our faction. This is your faction information tab, and it shows basic stuff such as details, insignia goes here, your name, your description, and you can have, your announcement system. And when you post an announcement like this, it'll broadcast across the galaxy to every faction member who's online. They'll all get a notification just like that. Here is your members tab. This is where you can view information on every member in your faction, and there's no search function because this is assumably going to be accessed by players who don't really need to be, seeing in-depth and detail searching out specific members. Here you have your admin page, and this is probably your most important page in all the faction menu. This is where you'll change your faction details, you'll change your members and manage them, kick them if you have to, and of course, set their permissions. And all these permissions are pretty self-explanatory, but I just wanted to touch on administrator real quick. This is a very dangerous permission to grant. It really is. Administrator gives the member the authority to do anything and everything. The only things that administrators cannot do is add or remove other administrators, kick administrators, or change the owner permission. And that isn't really an administrator thing, that's just an element of the owner permission. This can't be added or removed by anybody. But other than that, administrators have full sway over your faction, so be very careful who you grant this permission to. Recruiter and announcer, both very self-explanatory. If you think there may be a risk with having announcers, only have trusted members be announcers to reduce spam. Here you can change your faction name, faction tag, faction insignia, and your faction description. And you'll notice you don't even have to level up your faction or anything to do it. You just have to pay the money. As of now, there will be no faction levels, but in the future, when I flesh out player factions a little bit more, there will be a special kind of leveling system for factions that I think will really kind of round them out and make them more enjoyable. Anyhow, one thing we're going to do is change our description so I can kind of just show you how that all looks. And obviously you'll see here 150 characters max. This isn't going to be how low it is in the main game. I'm going to raise it to a 300 to 350. This was just kind of the character limit for testing purposes. So I'll just go ahead and set it to, something random. And you'll see our description shows up right here. It'll also show up in the player context menu. We're going to go ahead and change our faction tag now, and you'll notice we have a 10 character limit, costs 50,000 electrites, letters and hyphens only. So if I try to do a bunch of numbers, it's not going to let me do that. But if I go ahead and do something like T-A, that'll work, or Alliance, that'll also work. And you may have noticed there's a little delay between actually purchasing the tag and seeing the tag. This is because the player list updates every 5 seconds. That's all it is. It's just a visual thing. And then we can change our faction insignia. I'll just go ahead and grab my ID here. And you'll notice it has to be a Roblox image ID, not a decal ID. These are two distinct asset types that has to be noted. And here we go. We have our insignia showing down in our little box. And I just want to make it very clear, you will not get a placeholder icon like this. This is literally the icon I chose for testing purposes. If you choose an insignia, it'll be an actual insignia, not just this. But that actually about wraps it up for player factions. There were two other things I wanted to go over in this update, notably the context menu and the data migration thing. The player context menu is a new little pop-up I'm adding to replace the whole thing where you click a player tag in the player list and it brings up the trade menu. Now, all you have to do is click on their name down here. Obviously, I can't click on myself to bring up the player context menu. That'll show you a little bit of information about their faction membership status. It'll also tell you if you're able to send them a join request or to invite them to your faction. And it'll also give you some buttons to send a trade request and to send a join request or an invite. The last thing I wanted to just kind of touch base on before I sign off is the data migration thing. Most of you probably already know this, but I'm going to be migrating the data system to a new module script, basically to just kind of make it more reliable. And I've already kind of touched base on it and talked about it a little bit in the server, so I'm just going to cut right to the chase. There will not be a data wipe to change the data system. The data migration code is working, tested it all out. Bar exceptional circumstances, it will all work fine, and you won't even notice a difference when the update rolls out. And that wraps it up for this development blog. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it at least a little bit. I know it's not exactly the best thing in the world to just listen to me talk forever, but you know, this is what it is. And yeah, hope you're all as excited for this update as I am. Thanks for watching. See you all in the next one. Bye-bye.